Hi, I'm Tony Brooks, and this is Agri, Arkansas. It's what's for dinner. At least that is what the Arkansas Beef Council tells us. The beef industry in Arkansas is the 5th largest agriculture commodity in the state, and more than 27,000 farms in Arkansas raise cattle. Let's take a closer look now at the beef cattle industry in Arkansas.
Well, the cattle industry in Arkansas is a major part of the ag economy. There's cattle grown in every county in the state, and so land area-wise, it's the most diverse segment of the industry. We have around 5 million acres of pasture land in the state that's used for grazing animals, most of which are cattle.
Economically, with us being ranked 11th in cattle, having somewhere close to 900,000 head of beef cattle cows, as far as mama cows, we would be roughly $500 million worth of economic impact to the state of Arkansas.
Yeah, I like these old trucks a lot better than they're used to, because it's walking. The Lord gave us so many steps, and I've used them a lot of mine up. I've been a cattle producer on this farm here since 1968. And we cleared up this land, planted grass, and been raising cattle here ever since. And trying to improve and grow better beef to sell to the people and improve the livestock industry as a whole. The weather is probably one of the biggest challenges, because from one year to the next, you never know what you're going to deal with. It may be a drought, it can be a flood, it can be insects. There's times that grasshoppers out here so thick, they're like mosquitoes, and they eat up all the grass. And they hit you so hard, so quick, you don't even hardly have time to spray for them. But it's just, you never know from one year to the next what you're going to have.
The Mother Nature sometimes is pretty tough. In the 2012, my farm was like a desert, and now it's like a swamp. So you never know what you're going to get, and maybe that's part of it. It certainly satisfies my need to gamble. But in 2012, there were rains in early spring, but then they stopped and just stayed stopped. So by July, I knew I was in trouble.
2012 drought was probably one of the roughest milestones in cattle production in Arkansas in my lifetime.
2012, we had an extreme drought. It got dry early. We didn't hardly have any rain in the spring. And we went into the summer, and that West Texas wind was blowing, and the temperature was 100 degrees plus, and the grass just disappeared. And we bought hay on this farm here to feed through the summer. We started feeding in early June, last part of May, and we had to bring in, haul hay in from Louisiana and Mississippi that was on the river banks. On a river like that, it'll rain where it doesn't rain anywhere else. And those people cut that grass and hauled it all over, on up in this country. It was just like West Texas. West Texas was burnt plumb up, and Arkansas was too.
Exactly, trying to measure what it did to our land, the nutrients that it pulled from the soil, the grass that got, or our forage base that got burned up, you know, and then looking to put that nutrient back in the ground so we could get a forage base back a couple of years after. You know, more initially, the animals that we had to sell to get our farm through that drought.
I was really worried during that time because, you know, as it progressed through July and August, and I knew if I didn't get rain in the fall, I would have to sell out because I just didn't have the feed and grass for them to eat. And so I sure didn't want to let them get into a situation of not having enough to eat. First I started and sold some of the ones that just should have been sold in the past, and then worked my way up to some that weren't as good as others, and then I just had to cut into my base herd and ended up selling about half, or maybe even a little more than half of my cows.
We were running about 300 head of mama cows, and we reduced down to about 100. We cut half in two, down to 150 head to survive. Yeah, we're coming back. We're about 175, 180 head, and we plan on going back to about 200. Probably never go back to the number we had before because we were overstocked when we had some adverse weather conditions.
You know, and then the fact that feed prices were pretty high at that point in time as well, and then the drought made forage pretty scarce. So even regions around us where we were having to pull forage in, we were $100 on average for a bale of hay, and having to do truckloads at a time. So it was something that truly devastated Arkansas. We lost something like 300,000 head of mama cows within a year's time. And that drought had been creeping into southwest Arkansas in the latter parts of 2009 and into 2010, 2011, 2012. It encompassed all 75 counties in Arkansas, and then we were still reeling, trying to overcome that from 13 and 14.
We've had some production challenges the last several years. The entire industry the supplies of cattle are low. In fact, the number of cattle, we're at the same inventory of cattle we had 60 years ago. We're at a 60-year low in the number of animals. Now, productivity of each animal is greater. We've improved genetics and improved nutrition programs, and so, but we are at a kind of a low point in the production supply of beef in this country. As a result, we've seen high prices, but we have begun to build up herds ever so slightly. So we anticipate that, certainly maybe into this year, maybe next year, we could see some reductions in meat prices that consumers are paying.
A typical day for a cow-calf producer, you're getting up, you're checking mama cows. A lot of it's going to depend on what time of the year. Right now we're in the middle of our spring calving season, so checking cows that have calved, tending to those calves, and getting them back to their mothers. Then also checking through the cows to see which ones may be coming on next. We're trying to get our forages. We're in the transition period from winter to spring, so we're trying to get a handle on all of our forages. We're pulling soil samples. We're getting ready for fertilizer. We're looking to spray our pastures, get our forages off on the right foot, before we get later into the spring and the summer months. That's typically going to switch us over into our forage mindset, where we're going to spend the majority of our days tending to forages, putting up hay, servicing equipment. Then that's going to get us over, into the fall, where we're going to typically look toward what winter supplement we're going to need, getting ready to get our cattle ready for winter. A lot of these calves that we're having right now in the spring, we're going to look toward weaning, getting those calves ready for market, or whatever the next stage of their life may be. So it's all transition depending on Mother Nature and the time of the year that you're in as to what you're actually doing with the cattle at that point. The cattle industry here is, for Arkansas, is very, very, very stout. So, we have 26,000 producers here. Like I said earlier, we're at 1.6 million if you take into account all cattle. We're at 900,000, close to 1 million head of mama cows again, building back after that drought. Arkansans are spending $2.7 billion annually on beef products. I mean, the cattle industry is a major part of Arkansas's economic impact. It's a major part of rural Arkansas.
We'll talk a bit more about the beef cattle industry in Arkansas later in the show with Zachary Taylor of the Arkansas Agriculture Department. But first, though, let's visit a unique operation outside of Marshall, Arkansas. L.C. Ratchford of Ratchford Farms has been raising buffalo for the last 16 years.
You know, we're all meant to be doing something, I think, and I was meant to be raising buffalo. This is not a job to me, it's a way of life, and I love it. There's nothing I would rather be doing than what I'm doing now. Be out here on the farm, you know, clean, fresh air, working the land, working my buffalo and my other animals.
That's all of it, Banjo.
About 20 years ago, I saw a show on AETN about buffalo. Buffalo were starting to make a comeback from almost the brink of extinction of so many years ago. I saw them, I just felt a connection. I knew someday that this is what I wanted to do, was to raise buffalo. One of the biggest challenges with buffalo is just their entire personality. They're not cattle, they're not domesticated, they're a wild animal. If the saying is that a cow will hurt you, a buffalo will kill you. Just the handling of them, we have to have the fences. They're nothing like cattle fences. A lot of our fences are 7, 8 foot tall in our corrals and our holding facilities, and it's also to understand the animals more. There are very few books, if any, out there that's wrote on buffalo. You can't just YouTube how to handle buffalo in the way that you can cattle. There you go.
They're eating out of the bowl.
This way of life means everything to me. I had a very successful career as a welder, made very good money. I gave it up to do what I'm doing now. I made a lot more money at that point, but I was not nearly as happy as I am today. It's not a job. This is a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week lifestyle that you have to be ready, willing, and able to cancel any plans to do anything, to come back out here in the middle of the night if you've got a sick animal. If a tree's blew across the fence and it's in the middle of a thunderstorm, you have to go back out there and fix that fence. That if an animal is giving birth and needs assistance, no matter how cold it is or how hot it is, you may have to cancel your plans to go out to eat, to go to a movie, to do anything to take care of the farm and these animals. We are entrusted with taking care of these animals. As you see, these fences are so high, they can't get out. We have to be able to take care of them. That is a duty and an obligation as a farmer. When it comes to buffalo, this is a committed endeavor. You have to be ready, willing, and able to get in it and stay in it. This is not something that you get into and think, well, okay, I'll see how it works. It's not that easy. It's not that way.
Here's a little bit more. Oh, ow! One from each side now.
We've got approximately 500 acres that we raise buffalo, naturally raised beef, and some naturally raised produce. Currently online, we only ship out our dry products. Our summer sausage, our snack sticks, which we've got the buffalo snack sticks in the hot, and the original flavor. We've also got elk, jerky, wild boar, and deer. And the summer sausage, which we do ship through the U.S. Mail and UPS. We're a member of some of the online co-ops, which that is a big thing right now. And the internet's getting to be more and more a part of our business. And there's several different places around the state that you can get our buffalo burgers. If they're interested in some of our frozen products, they can either contact me for places in their area that they can purchase it, or like I encourage people, just come on out to the ranch, see how it's raised, where it's raised.
As you saw in that segment, Ratchford Farms has expanded its operation with an agritourism element. Many agriculture operations throughout the state have found alternative revenue streams through agritourism. Let's take a look.
I want to welcome all of you all here. It's wonderful that you came. I've met most of you.
Agritourism in Arkansas takes a variety of shapes and forms. As a general rule, it's anything that includes both elements of agriculture and tourism in it. So it might be on-farm markets, it might be U-pick operations, it might be recreational or entertainment type things. So the pumpkin patches, the corn mazes, the on-farm hunting, basically anything that brings people out to a farm community or an actual farm itself and gets people engaged in doing something. That's typically what we think of when we think of agritourism.
This one is called a sundew, and this catches very, very small flying insects. There's a couple.
Most farmers get involved in agritourism as a way of kind of generating some additional revenue, maybe diversifying what they're having to offer, and maybe smoothing out some of the ebbs and flows. So during the off-peak seasons, this might be a way that they could generate a little bit extra money and bring some things in to help sustain the family farm.
Woo pig suey.
Well, we've been farming since 1973, and we have 2 boys that are farming with us. The 2 were wanting to farm, so we didn't have enough land for 3 families to support. And I came up with the idea of the corn maze. I've been reading lots of farm magazines about it already happening in other areas. So we just decided to do it, and we contacted someone that specializes in corn maze designs. And last year we added another dimension to our ag tourism venture, converted our old farm shop into an event venue to be rented out for weddings, anniversaries, birthday parties, or what have you. It's allowed us to continue and 2 of our sons to also farm with us. Without this, I don't know that it would be hard for us to be farming.
Agritourism in Arkansas has a great economic impact on our rural areas and our rural communities. When you look at things such as the peach festivals, the grape festivals, the Cave City and Hope Watermelon festivals, that brings a good chunk of change to those areas. In Arkansas, we've got about 400 agritourism enterprises or farms that are engaging in agritourism. And when you look at that economic impact, it's about $4 million a year in receipts. So that's a pretty decent chunk that's going into those areas.
There's no shortage of things people will come out and do. And so you just have to kind of put your thinking cap on and figure out what's something new that people aren't experiencing that maybe people might be interested in doing. And I know sometimes our farmers get caught up in, well, no one would be interested in that, but that's not true. I mean, when I first moved back to Arkansas from Wisconsin, I was driving along one day and saw a big combine out in the field, and I thought, a lot of people I know would stop and pay $100 just to ride one row up in that combine. So really thinking creatively about what you have to offer, I think, is the key to success in this industry for sure.
For more information on agritourism in Arkansas, visit arkansas.com. Joining us now is Zachary Taylor of the Arkansas Agriculture Department and L.C. Ratchford of Ratchford Farms. Gentlemen, thank you for being with us. And Zach, let's start with you. It was a rough couple of years for the cattle industry in Arkansas, namely the droughts of 2011, 2012, and previously on this program we talked about the impact that had on the dairy industry, and I assume it was much the same for cattle.
Tony, it really was. 2012 we had that real bad drought, and what we started seeing during that time is producers that were in their late 70s, early 80s, who'd had cattle since they were 15 or 16 years old, selling off their herds. So in 2013, Arkansas's cow numbers were the lowest they'd been since 1964.
So that really, really drew it down. Arkansas's head currently about, 1.6 million now?
We are. That's where we're at.
That's down 1% from last year. And you just mentioned in 2013, the lowest level since 64. But there are factors that signal we're on the verge of a comeback.
There is. When you look at the cattle inventory in 2015 this year, the numbers we're seeing, cattlemen are holding over their female cattle to rebuild their herd. We're seeing herd numbers build. Because we're seeing that, we're seeing prices a little bit higher. And those higher prices go back to 2012, but they've been extended a little bit because of that herd building. It looks like Arkansas's cattle industry that's there is rebounding.
At this point, I'm saying slaughter cattle prices over $2 a pound and feeder cattle about $2.50. Is that about what?
They are, and that's really interesting to see because I grew up on a cow-calf operation, and back in the 80s, I can remember 60 cents a pound, $2 a pound, $2.50 a pound. I mean, it's just an unbelievable number.
LC, is that something you're seeing on your operation? I mean, you have the buffalo, but you also still raise cattle.
Yes, sir.
Are you seeing the opportunity maybe for better opportunity for profit?
Oh, definitely. I mean, we've got several head of cattle, cow-calf operation, and we lost a significant amount of money back in 2012, due to the drought,
Right.
The extended feeding season. But yes, I'm seeing some profit.
I want to talk a little bit more about your unique operation. That the farm's been in your family since what, 1952?
Yes, sir.
Is that correct? You took over in 1986.
Yes, sir.
Purchased your first buffalo in 97.
Yes, sir.
Now, you just don't go to the sale barn and decide I'm going to buy some buffalo and get in the buffalo business. You had to prepare your farm for their arrival.
Yes, sir, I did.
What did you have to do?
Well, I received a welding degree after high school, and I went on to pursue welding and building steel corrals, steel fences. And since I knew I wanted buffalo, I had went and saw a few buffalo ranches, saw the steel fences, the holding corrals, and I started, even before I got my buffalo, my cattle facilities, my cattle pens were getting somewhat dilapidated, run down, and I started rebuilding the cattle facilities with the steel pipe, the steel bars, and getting fences. I knew what I wanted, and I went for it.
Is it that the buffalo, and I know they're considerably more powerful than cattle, but they're not domesticated like cattle, so you handle them a lot differently, I'm sure.
Oh yes, buffalo are a wild animal. They've got all the wild instincts of self-preservation, and they consider people a potential predator, and they're willing to defend themselves. When cattle attack, if they ever run at you, they will attack just usually one at a time. Buffalo, they've got the herd mentality. If they attack as a group.
I see the people that come to your ranch, and what's the difference in size of a typical bull and a buffalo? When you look at that.
From the standpoint of beef cattle versus the buffalo, size-wise, the buffalo are considerably heavier because they're denser.
Okay.
But overall, buffalo are some bigger, especially the bulls. It's nothing uncommon to see a buffalo bull that'll go 3,000 pounds, whereas the average bovine or beef animal bull will go maybe a ton,
so
2,000 pounds.
That intimidation factor is definitely there.
Definitely.
It is. Now, you not only have buffalo and cattle, but you've included goats, emus, chickens, and you're moving more toward the agritourism, at least segment of that, with these magnificent creatures, people coming to see them, purchase your products. How big a part of your operation has that become?
Well, it started as a novelty, something I wanted as a hobby, but I was able to integrate my hobby of wanting these other semi-exotic animals to go with the buffalo. But to answer your question, it's probably 5 to 10% of it now.
Mm-hmm. And Zach, we're seeing this growing in other segments across the state. What are some of the other areas where we're seeing agritourism really begin to pick up?
Well, it's really unique across the different parts of the state. In the Delta, in central Arkansas, we're starting to see Christmas tree farms. We're seeing corn mazes and pumpkin patches. In northwest Arkansas, we see all types of stuff from U-pick operations to U-fish type operations. I mean, it's really interesting, but what's really interesting about agritourism is it's not a new concept to Arkansas. Probably the biggest agritourism in Arkansas is duck hunting. And Arkansas has been known for duck hunting since the late 1800s.
Okay, I'm going to throw this out there, both of you. We've got a couple of minutes left. What does the future look like for cattle production, beef cattle production, and your operation with buffalo in the future?
Oh, I think it's very simple. Our operation just keeps growing. People want to see where their food's coming from. People want to get back to naturally raised, and I see my operation thriving, expanding even further, and I'm loving it.
Very good. And for beef cattle?
For beef cattle, I think here in Arkansas there's a bright future. We're seeing grain prices come down, which helps to lower those feed prices. One interesting thing we've seen is Arkansas being as big a poultry state as we are, a lot of our cattle operations are starting to complement those poultry operations. And there's some interchangeable type stuff there and everything. But for beef, I would say, the future's real bright in Arkansas.
Okay. And what is the best time to visit Ratchford Farms? You want to bring the family up and learn about buffaloes and learn about your operation there. When's the best time to come?
Well, this is a operating ranch, so I always suggest please call first. Please call, make an appointment. I'll work with you around your schedule. We love to have visitors. School groups, we'll give tours to any organization or just to the family. Mm-hmm. But be sure and bring your camera and make an appointment.
And you have a website that they can visit?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, hopefully we'll get a lot of folks up there to learn about buffaloes. You've been there.
I've been there. It was a very unique experience.
Zach likes to ride them. Gentlemen, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
That's all the time we have for now. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you'll join us again next time. For Agri Arkansas, I'm Tony Brooks.
Major funding for this program provided by the Moving Image Trust Fund. Additional funding for this program provided by the Arkansas Agriculture Department.